I call the meeting of the San Juan Unified School District Board of Education to order. There are two closed session items on tonight's agenda. Item 1 is a student expulsion in one case, Education Code Section 48918F. Item 2, collective bargaining matters, discussion with negotiator Daniel Thigpen, Senior Director, Labor Relations, regarding CSEA Chapter 127, General Operations Support, chauffeurs, Teamsters, Local Number 150, transportation, supervisors, teachers, and certificated supervisory units, and regarding non-represented groups, management and confidential units, Government Code Section 54957.6. At this moment, we do not have any speaker cards on the closed session agenda items. There have neither been written comments received. There's no one here in person. So with that, we will now move into closed session and we will return to open session at 6:30 p.m. Good evening and welcome. I call the meeting of the San Juan Unified School District Board of Education back to order. Board meetings are being held in person in the boardroom. Thank you for joining us here at the district office, and the public is welcome to attend. Pursuant to state and local health guidelines, masks are required to be worn indoors. Individuals attending in person are requested to keep their masks on for the duration of their time at the meeting. Staff has been stationed outside of the boardroom to ensure that all in-person participants are aware of the mask requirement. Individuals who have removed their masks after entering the building have been asked to put their mask back on or leave, and they are refusing to follow these guidelines at this time. Alternatively, the meeting may also be viewed on the district's YouTube channel where it is being live streamed. The meeting is being audio and video recorded, and the recording may capture sounds and images of those attending this meeting. The recording will be posted on the district website. At this time, I please invite you to stand for the presentation of the colors by the Del Campo High School Air Force Junior ROTC. Good evening and welcome. I'm Paula Viescas, Board President, and to my right is Dr. Michael McKibben, Board Vice President. To his right is Ms. Zima Creason, Board Clerk. To her right is Ms. Pam Costa and Mr. Saul Hernandez, Board Members. To my left is Superintendent Kent Kern, and to his left is Board Administrative Assistant Stephanie Cunningham. Before we begin, I'd like to review the two methods that are available to offer public comment for tonight's meetings. For those of you who are attending the board meeting in person and would like to offer public comment on items that are on the agenda, we ask that you please complete a speaker card that is available at the staff table over there, and you will be called on at the appropriate time during the agenda. The second option is to submit a public comment online using the comment form located on the district website at www.sanjuan.edu/board-meeting. If you wish to submit a public comment on more than one agenda item, please submit a separate form for each item on which you are commenting. Comments received by 6 p.m. today have already been shared with all board members. Comments received after 6 p.m. tonight, including those submitted during the meeting, may be read during the meeting depending on time restrictions. Comments may only be submitted on an agenda item up until the time that the agenda item has been discussed. Please note that all public comments are limited to a 2-minute limit or approximately 1,500 characters. We are now at item D, approval of the minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes for September 14th? Is there a second? It's been moved by Ms. Costa and seconded by Dr. McKibben. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. That was unanimous. We are now at item E1, recognition of the week of the school administrator, Mr. Oropalo. Mr. Oropalo, your mic's not on. There you go.
Thank you. Good evening, President Viascas, board members, Superintendent Kern, Ms. Cunningham. I'm here tonight to present the superintendent's recommendation that the governing board adopt resolution A407 proclaiming October 10th through the 16th, 2021 as the week of the school administrator. Normally at this time, what I would do is recognize the dedication and the work that our administrators do in terms of giving a safe and nurturing environment, providing instruction in the classroom, and the dedication and community to our service. But this is a year like no other, and it has been extremely challenging for our administrators this year. I have never been more proud of a group of individuals and be a part of a group of individuals as I would say the school administrators for San Juan Unified School District in the year 2021. They're doing work that they never thought they'd be doing. They're contact tracing. They're talking to people about vaccinations. They are talking to people about substitute shortages and filling in classrooms on a daily basis. And they are working harder as a group than I've ever seen a group of individuals work. So it gives me great pleasure to bring this forward. I'd also like to recognize and have come forward Mr. Richard Judge, the president of the San Juan the San Juan Professional Educators Coalition, and Diana Marshall as well. You guys both come on up front. And Diana is the president of the San Juan Administrators Association, and they're here to thank the board for the resolution. And Rich, I'll let you, if you'd like to say a word or two, and Diana, you as well. Go ahead.
I'm old school. Thank you, President Viascas, members of the board, Superintendent Kern, Ms. Cunningham. It is my privilege truly to represent the dedicated, hardworking site administrators, psychologists, and program specialists of the San Juan Unified School District. Mr. Oropalo has it right. Our members have worked very hard this year. They've met the challenge during these very trying times with creativity and resiliency. They want to ensure that a quality learning environment is in place in the face of these hardships. On behalf of the San Juan Professional Educators Coalition, I wish to express our appreciation for you taking the time to recognize our efforts this year and to recognize our dedication to our profession. Thank you.
Good evening, school board members. I just like, as president of San Juan Administrators Association, we'd just like to thank you so much for this acknowledgement, the work not only at the sites, but through all of the departments and the administrators in all of the departments, the amount of extra work that they're doing this year to make it as smooth as possible. I believe that this work is very appreciated. So thank you for your continued support.
Thank you, Rich and Diana. This is an action item.
Thank you. It is indeed an action item. And first I will be asking for a motion, but first I want to see if there's any comments or questions. I just want to express my my gratitude. Our administrators have turned into public health experts, COVID testing experts, school safety experts, experts in how to manage. They were already experts in how to manage personnel, but adding, the broader school community, it's definitely been a hard road ahead, and we are certainly appreciative of the kind of above and beyond that our administrators have gone. So I just want to express my thank you on behalf of the board and ask everyone to join me in a round of applause. Thank you. And now, is there a motion to adopt the resolution number A407, proclaiming the week of October 10th through 16th as the week of the school administrator? It's been moved by Ms. Costa and seconded by Ms. Creason. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. That was unanimous. Thank you again. Thank you, Mr. Oropolo and team. We are now at item E2, our high school student council reports. Tonight, we have the absolute pleasure of hearing from our student representatives from Rio Americano High School and San Juan High School. Welcome to you all, and we can begin with Nate Vanderkar and Lana Avetisian from Rio Americano. And I apologize in advance and invite you to correct me if I've misspelled your name. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, President Villasquez, members of the board, Superintendent Kern, and Ms. Cunningham. We are Nate Vanderkar and Lana Avetisian. Thank you for inviting us to share with you a little bit about what is happening at Rio Americano High School. Rio is adapting and changing with the times, overcoming obstacles and finding success in our students and faculty. With so much happening in the world, we are trying to find ways to best support our community. Responding to the pandemic and raging fires, we are putting on our first blood drive where students are given the opportunity to donate blood to those in need. We have also just put on our largest and most active Club Rush Week yet, with over 50 clubs in attendance and a display in our quad that would match college campuses. Another way we are trying to include our student body is by getting together with our ILS program and finding ways to include them in mainstream activities at our school. Every Wednesday and Friday, a student from ILS joins two of our student government members in monitoring and overseeing the student store. They learn how to operate machinery, interact with customers, and organize clothes. Rio is also turning a new page and highlighting the struggles of mental health. Our counseling office now is a part-time mental health professional that can aid and advise students on the best ways to maintain adequate mental health. We are currently in our online Suicide Prevention Awareness Week, where we provide educational and informational resources in order to raise awareness about suicide. Next month, we are putting on events and publicizing information and again, educational resources in order to raise awareness about breast cancer. We are also finding new ways to appreciate our faculty and staff. Next week is our first Faculty Appreciation Week. We are going all out to support and recognize our staff.
Since sports are back, so are our student sections. We are showing out for our athletes and coaches with rowdy student sections filled with spirited and engaged fans. Unfortunately, we have canceled or postponed many of our events this year, so we are trying to find ways to put on activities and events outside during school hours. Every Wednesday and Friday at lunch, we put on games, play music, play music, and put spike ball nets on the field so that students can socialize and have fun in a COVID-safe environment. We also just had our annual Cheer Pasta Feed, where our students, faculty, and parents show up to a night of music, performances, and food to raise money for our cheer coaching staff. Our homecoming week will look very different than usual. We are putting on a homecoming week with spirit days and lunchtime activities. Each class will be decorating their hallway with their chosen city to go with the overall homecoming theme of cities. Then on Friday, we are having an extended lunch period, which will include games, music, and an ice cream social. With the help of our parents, we collaborated with PTSA to have a school-wide caravan from Rio's parking lot to the football game at Del Campo. The football game will be held at Del Campo as we stand in need of bleachers and have to make necessary arrangements in order to have games. We also have our outdoor senior family picnic this weekend, where seniors and their families can meet up, eat, and enjoy music. Thank you so much for having us here this evening. It was a great opportunity to represent the interests of Rio Americano High School. Thank you.
Thank you, Nate and Lana, and I appreciated the teamwork and the report. I'm going to see if my colleagues have any questions or comments of you. Checking with my colleagues. Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you for that report. I just want to commend you. When the world tells us so many things that we can't do, you guys have found ways that you can and to benefit our students. So thank you very much for that.
Ms. Grayson.
Thank you for the report. Just a couple of notes. You hit my heart on a few things. First, and I'm sorry, acronyms throw me off sometimes. ILS.
That's our independent living services class.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So you really hit my heart, the blood drive. Can you talk a little bit more? Is that during school hours?
Yeah, so we've had signups over the last 2 weeks and it actually filled up within the first day.
That's awesome.
So all of our slots filled up, and then the blood donation organization is going to come next week during school hours, and kids usually choose their least active period. So typically their elective class to go donate blood during that time.
That's wonderful. And do you do that multiple times a year usually, or?
Yeah, it's typically once every semester, but I think we're going to go for twice this semester just because of the environmental disasters and the pandemic and such.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. The breast cancer awareness really hit my heart too. So often that's a conversation saved for older women, when really everybody at a younger age, men too, any person needs to have that conversation and awareness. My mother passed of breast cancer when I was 11 years old. So that's an issue near and dear to my heart. So I really commend you for elevating that. It's huge.
Thank you.
I know I had more fundraising. You mentioned a fundraiser coming up, and I was just at San Juan High School earlier today, and fundraising was something that was discussed with the class. I'm just wondering, how are you making that work? Like, what kind of fundraising are you doing?
Well, we're trying to make ways to just be as safe as possible, because we really want to stay in school. And so what really we've been doing is we've been contacting places that have outside of school. We contact places that have food for everyone, we can raise food with everyone. But during school hours, we usually just, we haven't done this yet, but we're planning on an ice cream social. And with this, we're going to try to have masks as much safety as possible, and just try to raise money in a COVID safe way.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Thank you both very much for the report. And I just, love all the activities happening at Rio, and we really appreciate when you all come and share them. So thank you very much for coming. I wanted to invite you, if you wanted to share just a little bit more around kind of it sounded like there was an effort around peer support and with an emphasis on mental health in particular. Is there anything, that you see you'd like to be happening that you might not be able to, or just something that, we might be able to lend support on that, or anything else you'd like to share about those efforts? I really appreciated the mention.
I mean, yeah,
there.
Over summer, we kind of had planning sessions, not knowing what the year was going to look like. And we basically came to the conclusion that because not everybody has social media, and because not everybody has access to everything we're doing and they don't look at all of our posters and everything, the most efficient way to reach everyone on campus is through like a rally format essentially. And so when that's kind of hard during COVID. So our ideal goal in the next few years after the COVID guidelines have sort of died away and we can all be safe indoors is to have like the mental health conversations in a school-wide setting where everyone's present and it's person to person, so it's more engaging and personal, and having mental health experts come and talk to the school in person or going classroom to classroom, because not everybody reads all their social media posts and not everyone is as active as the next person. So our goal in the next coming years is to have school-wide settings where all 2,000 kids can come and be in one place and we can have more engaging conversations about mental health.
Excellent. I really appreciate kind of the additional context there. And it sounds like you're thinking pretty long-term, but if there's anything in the short term or long-term that, we can be helpful with, or that I can be helpful with, please don't hesitate to let us know. Thank you both very much for joining us. Next
Thank
up,
you.
thank you. Next up, we will hear from Natalie Castaneda and Giovanni Castillo from San Juan High School.
Hello? You're good? All
You're
right.
good to go.
All right, thank you. Good evening, President Villasquez, members of the board, Superintendent Kern, and Ms. Cunningham. I'm Giovanni Castillo, currently a senior at San Juan High School, and I am an avid.
I am Natalie Castaneda, also a senior at San Juan High School. I am cheer captain, ASB president, and also have been an avid for the past 4 years. Thank you for inviting us to share with you a little bit about what is currently happening at San Juan High School.
Like many students at San Juan High School, I feel like we've been dragged down the list of priorities. We received our books 2 weeks after our first day of school. We just recently received our Chromebooks for every classroom, and we've seen more substitutes than teachers. This lack of resources caused colleges' applications to come to a complete standstill because of the lack of computers, and made teachers halt their lesson plans. Although we acknowledge that we are all going through a tough time, and one of the toughest we will probably be faced with in our lifetime, we feel that our priority placement made it a little harder on us.
Recently, ASB has been struggling a bit with trying to plan events around everything due to it getting canceled last minute or us just being told no to events. But we have just put on our first Spirit Week of the school year a week ago during our homecoming week, which went pretty well. We were also able to hold our annual club rush during the same week, and many students were able to find and join clubs they were interested in. We have had some fun Fridays since school started with activities and games for students to hang out and do during lunch, which have been successful. We also were able to do homecoming court this year, even though we didn't have a dance, which allowed students to elect their fellow classmates to be nominated and possibly win homecoming royalty for their grade class. As for upcoming events, we are working towards planning for our senior night football game, which will be on October 29th, and the annual alumni picnic will be taking place this Saturday, October 2nd, at Rush Park from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. We would like to extend the invitation to you all.
After spending a year and a half behind the screen, it feels good to be back in person and connecting with students and teachers. Although the transition was a little shaky at first, we are back like we never left. For many students, such as myself, being able to have that sense of human connection back has made school so much more engaging. Students who would never participate in class are participating. We have more people in the stands than ever, and our school spirit is through the roof. We're all trying our hardest to make a good situation out of the problems we are faced with.
As seniors in high school, there have been many resources to get us ready for college, whether it is having supportive teachers who want to see us succeed or having programs like AVID or Pipeline to College. We have also been provided with great opportunities that help us prepare for our future. Most students at San Juan had never even thought about going to college before attending high school, but with the help of AVID and our College and Career Center, here at San Juan, more students are seeing college as a possibility for them. AVID, I can say from personal experience, helps students prepare for college, especially those who are first in their family to pursue higher education and know nothing about the college process.
We would like to say thank you for giving us a chance to speak about our school.
Thank you both so much for joining us this evening and for your reports. I'm first going to check in with my colleagues to see if there's any questions or comments. Ms. Creason.
Thank you for your report. And mask faces are hard. I believe you two were in the class today. It's nice to see you guys again. And thank you for hosting me today. It was a wonderful conversation. So as I mentioned in class today, books are going to be discussed tonight. And I know you might not want to stay around, but that's going to be addressed. And it's a really important issue. So I appreciate you bringing it up. The Chromebook advocacy, as I said earlier today, was amazing. And I appreciate, you guys reaching out, and I hope that we can continue to collaborate. To my colleagues, had a great discussion with their class today. There's a lot of great ideas that came up. Some things are board related, some aren't, but I did commit to help them, wherever the right leverage point is to get them there. So I really appreciate the initiative and advocacy that you are all willing to do. Regarding events, it's my understanding that an announcement will be coming out later this week. So staying tuned for that. Is that correct?
There's already been some communication out.
Okay.
And so Trent, are we having more communication this week? Okay. But the information has been shared with school administrators as the new guidance did go public last week.
Okay. So more on events soon. I know that a lot of folks want, we're back on campuses and folks want to get together and do things. So I get it. Within safety guidelines, we should be able to do that. And so more coming on that soon. And you did mention an event that you invited us to. If we can follow up and just get that via email, maybe Ms. Cunningham can help get it all to the board so we're all aware and can come out and support. Thank you.
Thank you both for joining us this evening and for your reports. I just want to say thank you as well for the advocacy on the Chromebooks. I was able to email with every single one that sent us an email, and the buck stops with us. And so I want to say, I believe that the Chromebooks were delivered this week. And so that item has at least been addressed for now, but appreciate kind of the ongoing conversation. And we've kind of been at the mercy of a global supply chain shortage. And I kind of joked with Superintendent Kern and said, well, why don't you just go fix that? And so he said he'd try. But in the meantime, if we're not able to fix that immediately, I just want to note, there are many, many ways to advocate. I appreciate having kind of grown up and having an interest in advocacy that you and your peers advocating to us. And I just want to reiterate the offer to continue that advocacy at both this level of government and multiple levels of government. There's it's tied to an infrastructure package going through Congress. I know that it's kind of hard to kind of pinpoint a lot of the challenges that we deal with every day with the global challenges, but I think we're all learning that we're all very interconnected. And so want to kind of issue that invitation again for some continued advocacy support personally to you and your peers. And just want to express again my appreciation for both of you. Thank you for joining us this evening, and we appreciate your report. Thank you. Thank you again to our student presenters. You are certainly welcome to stay for the remainder of the meeting, but as you noted in your own reports, you're very busy. So this is also a good time to depart and get back to your long list of activities that you're involved in. Thank you for joining us. We are now at item E3, staff reports. Superintendent Kern.
President Villasquez, members of the board, community members, I want to provide just a little update on a couple of things. I had the opportunity last Thursday night and part of the day Friday to attend our NorCal SUPS meeting that we have a couple times a year. And there were superintendents throughout the region there. And it was really interesting to hear, and not surprisingly so, that a lot of the challenges that we're facing in our district, we're seeing throughout the region, throughout the state, when we look at shortages of subs, shortages of bus drivers, food service workers. It's just a real challenge. You can even look locally around and you'll see that some restaurants may not be open 7 days a week as well, just because of the workforce shortage. So we face a lot of challenges. And I think one of the difficult things is historically we're in the positions we are because we're able to readily resolve those issues. And it's frustrating at times when there aren't always answers to each of these challenges. I did want to say we continue to be in contact with our families with students in Afghanistan. We still have approximately 40 plus students over there and over a total of 70 students and families. And so those conversations are taking place as frequently as possible. I did have the opportunity today to meet one of the families that we helped get back. The individual came in and just wanted to say thanks. So that was definitely a bright spot of the day, but we're going to continue to work. Thank you. We're going to continue to work on getting every one of those and through every means necessary. I wanted to provide a little bit more of an update on the work we've done around the substitute issue, just showing how much we've tried to do, and yet this is something we still struggle with. I get updates every day as the unfilled spots. And when I get the list today, it was lower than normal. It was 33. That doesn't mean that all those spots, we just couldn't find a sub there. Some of those went filled either by emergency backup teachers or other means. Sometimes, again, our administrators are subbing in. But I kind of want to just go down the list of things. We increased our sub rates at the last board meeting. We raised the rates to 175, 200, 225, and it's likely we may be coming back again and looking at possibly raising that again. We used to have sub orientation twice a month. We now do it weekly. We increased our recruitment, including reaching out to parents. We are now not waiting for the entry into some of our systems. We're manually assigning that documentation so that we can get it in. We're waiving fees for some of these individuals. We have invited student teachers to apply. We have recruited past substitutes, reaching out to them specifically. We've reached out to recent retirees. And then we're finalizing some side letters of agreement with CSEA so that our IA1 subs, our BIAs can sub as well. We've provided a $2,000 bonus for homeschool independent study teachers. And then we've even had, Diana was working with our SJAA members here, folks at the district office who are subbing specifically on Fridays. We see a really high number of absences on Fridays. A lot of folks either taking personal necessity or sick. And so we see a much higher increase on those days. So we have had district office people going out and subbing. So we're trying to do everything we can. I would encourage anybody out there in the community who has other suggestions or ideas, feel free to email me directly. But we're going to continue doing all we can to address those issues and the other staffing issues we have.
Thank you, Superintendent Kern. Do any of my colleagues have comments or questions on the staff report item? Seeing none. Thank you for the report and for the updates. We are now at items E4 through E6. I'm going to do a quick check, but I don't see any speaker cards. Just confirming. And I don't see any late additions. Okay, so we do not have any speaker cards for board appointed district committees, employee organizations, and other district committees. So with that, we are at item E7, closed session expulsion actions. Ms. Creason.
The board voted unanimously to accept a hearing panel's recommendation of one suspended expulsion in case number M01.
Thank you, Ms. Creason. We are now at item F, visitor comments. We do have speaker cards for visitor comments. I'll be going in order of who has signed up over at our table over here to the left of the room if you are facing the dais. I would like to remind the public that comments are limited to 2 minutes. The clock on the screen over here counts down the time, and under the Ralph M. Brown Act, the board is not allowed to comment on items that are not on the agenda. So we are not ignoring your comments. We just can't respond to any individual comments. The superintendent can refer items to staff who can follow up with you. I am gonna say the name of the individual followed by the individual who will follow up next so that you'll know that you're about to go next. And so in our order of who has signed up, we are going to start with Sarah Waldrop, followed by Christian Chittenden. And I apologize in advance if I mispronounce any names and invite you to correct me when you approach the dais. Ms. Waldrop, please begin when you're ready.
Okay, the COVID protocols in place by San Juan Unified are not only unnecessary for students, but detrimental. It comes down to the data First of all, for ages 0 to 18, the survival rate of COVID is 99.997%, less deadly than the seasonal flu. Since January 2020, 335 children under 18 have died from COVID in the entire US, and restrictions are based on this number. Dr. Marty McCary, a medical expert at Johns Hopkins, and his team conducted a study of 48,000 COVID cases in ages 18 and under. Not one of those died from COVID. According to the California Department of Public Health, as of September 22nd, there have been a total of 35 deaths in ages 0 to 18 in all of California since the pandemic started. So from this number, your school district thinks we should mask kids, test them, and encourage them to take an experimental gene therapy. I have emailed all of you the information showing that masks do not prevent infection and transmission of viruses, but can, on the other hand, cause great harm. Dr. Blaylock states problems from wearing a mask for long periods can range from headaches, carbon dioxide accumulation to hypoxia, all the way to serious life-threatening complications. Another pediatrician warns masks promote fear, stress, panic, anxiety, and thus can cause harm to children's brain development. Testing for COVID is a complete waste of time. The protocol for the PCR test given by WHO and CDC was knowingly set to a level that guaranteed 100% false positives, false negatives. Last but not least, the experimental COVID shot you're pushing on our kids has caused more deaths and adverse events in 1 year than all other vaccines did in the previous 30 years. A UC study found boys are 6 times more likely to suffer heart problems from the vaccine than COVID. VAERS of September 17th had reported 15,000 deaths from the shot, and it is well known only an average of 1% of these are reported. This is in clear violation of the Nuremberg Code. As the people we've been.
Thank you. That's the balance of your 2 minutes. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. That is the balance of your 2 minutes. Next up, we have Kristen Chittenden, followed by Rain Connor, and I'm going to ask the audience to refrain from outbursts. Please go ahead, Kristen Chittenden. Your 2 minutes begins when you're ready.
Thank you. Good evening, President Villescaz, board members, Superintendent Kern, and Ms. Cunningham. My name is Kristen Chittenden, and I am the 2122 Mira Loma IB President Organization President. I'm coming before you to bring to your attention a deep concern that we parents have regarding the current administration at Mira Loma being unable to perform their normal duties because they are spending the entire day chasing down students who are out of class or roaming the school. It seems that due to a shortfall of about 50 students, Mira Loma lost one of its vice presidents, and because the Safe Schools officers' duties being reassigned to COVID tracing, Mira Loma no longer has their dedicated Safe Schools officer either. Consequently, the 2 campus monitors, 2 vice principals, and principals spend their day wrangling students instead of normal admin duties. This is an unprecedented time, and this year marks a year of transition for students who spent the past 18 or so months homebound, not accountable for their behavior, not in a structured environment, and many of these students seem to not be integrating back into the rigid school day structure. I'm sure that Mira Loma is not the only school facing these problems. I understand that the current administration at the high school has expressed to the district several times that they're stretched very thin. You have just approved a resolution, number A407, celebrating school administrators and their very expanded roles. I'm here pleading on their behalf because Mira Loma has an amazing administration team, and we don't want them to leave because the district refuses to provide adequate resources to maintain good student behavior. I propose the district hear some options and consider embracing a solution that will offer some release to Mira Loma's admin staff so they can focus on keeping the only IB high school in the district at the prestige level it has earned the past decades. Since this is a transitional year, these proposals would be for an immediate need, not forever. First, use the extra monies the Fed has passed along for COVID-related items to hire COVID tracing personnel and allow the Safe Schools officers to return to their schools.
Thank you. That's the balance of your 2 minutes. Next, we have Rain Connor, followed by Joanna Noonan.
Hi, my name's Rain Connor. I have 2 grandchildren in school in this district. I am very upset at the way things are being handled, or in this case, not being handled. And I do want to say that if we all clap, that isn't an outburst. That's actually support. We're supporting other parents who are in the same position and grandparents. So this is a virus. Why was the world shut down? People told to stay in their homes, isolate from the people that they love, miss their education, their friends. Businesses closing down for what? A virus that there's no cure for. There's the flu, it's a virus. SARS is a virus. AIDS is a virus. A cold is a virus. Why is this happening? Let these children breathe. These masks have been proven to make people sick. It's proven time and time again that masks do not work. Why are schools getting paid to push this agenda? How much money are you making off this? I'd really like to know, because I know schools do. They do. Government pushing this clot shot, doesn't that concern you? Why are they doing this? Why are they going to door, offering money, offering discounts, incentives? Why are they pushing this agenda? Even people who have had this shot are getting sick. Everybody knows about it. They already have their shot and they're still sick. They're dying. The government did not do enough research to show this mask mandate and clot shot to shove this down everyone's throats. Now you want to put this on our.
Thank you. Next up, we have Joanna Noonan, followed by Chris Biss.
Good evening. My name is Joanna Noonan. I am a mother of three. Two of my children attend San Juan School Districts. I'm here tonight to plead with you to abolish the mask mandate, continue forward with mask choice for all students and staff. According to our state website, children under 18 account for 0.0004% of COVID deaths in California. Is the science clear yet? COVID is here to stay, but the data proves that our schools are not super spreaders and our children are not at a great risk and therefore should not be subjected to the fear-mongering, harmful, and unnecessary mandates. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to me.
Next up, we have Chris Biss, followed by Sonia Lopez.
It's Chris Bish. It's like bishop without the up. So we can go ahead and start the clock. My name is Chris Bish. I'm here to address the board. Several of the parents that have already spoke have addressed several issues that I'm concerned about. One of them is the money. I understand that all the school districts within just the state of California, that we are all suffering, particularly after the events of last year. But according to the California school districts, that you are receiving $4,752 for each student. That is a lot of money. We have on March 11th of 2021 that you're getting $99,933,764. With that much money, there should be a way to address the concerns of the parents, and even if it's special classes for students who aren't willing to wear their masks or do not have the ability to wear the mask. We should be able to accommodate all students, whether it's a mental disability or a physical disability. These children need to be accommodated because, again, not everyone can wear a mask. With that, I'm going to ask that the board put on next school board agenda an opportunity for parents and interested people to come and ask about the mask mandates, and that it be an agenda item so that you can respond to their questions. This is something that needs to be done. Parents are under a lot of pressure and to take care of their children. They're dependent on you. I listened to Mr. Kern talk passionately about the children that you're trying to get back from Afghanistan. This is something that pulls at all of our heartstrings, but you've got to take care of the children that are here, the ones that cannot wear the mask, that are being mentally and physically impacted by the results. Thank you.
Next up, we have Sonia Lopez.
Good evening, board members. I would like to address the student report from earlier. I understand that 2 schools in the San Juan district have already canceled their homecomings. I have already written to each of you about this. They're able to have football games and they're able to do other kind of activities. And I have addressed each one of you in an email asking you alternatives that we could do, possibly a homecoming dance in the football field of each school. And if that wasn't possible, I also told you that I would personally, for El Camino High School, reach out and try to find a venue for these children. So I would like to know a little bit more about that in the future as soon as possible, because they're coming up very soon. Second of all, the cases in Sacramento County have dropped significantly since last month. As of August 17th, there was a 700 average cases per week. As of 9/24, it's now down to 285 cases. That's a huge drop in cases in 1 month. And you guys are still not letting up on these kids. You're still not letting up on the masks. Now I'm hearing you guys are going to vaccine mandates are coming next. I say no, absolutely not. And we will fight you and we will replace you if we have to. There's already petitions going around for every single one of you to be recalled. So I just want to leave you with that. Good evening.
Next up, I will check with staff to see if we've had any comments submitted via our written comment submission.
We do have one written comment
Okay,
submitted.
please read it at this time.
First, from Heather O'Connor, who writes, "Dear board members, just wanted to reach out and say thank you for standing by safety guidelines and deciding to postpone homecoming. I know it's hard for students, parents, and faculty to forego these events, but I think it's important to take these precautions seriously and avoid mass exposures. I know there are disappointed students, and I hope that one day we will be able to have these events again when the time is right. But unfortunately, that time is not now, especially with the new exposures occurring in schools' athletic teams. So thank you for standing strong, and thank you for acting in the community's best interest, even though it was a very hard decision to make. I know that this is ultimately for the best. I have lost family members to COVID, and the sacrifices of lost events are tough, but not nearly as hard as losing a loved one. Again, thank you, and I know that I speak for many people in the community when I say that we see what you guys are doing, and we appreciate you being proactive about deciding to cancel these events." That's the only submitted written comment.
Thank you. That's the balance of our public comments. So we are done with item F. We are now at item G, our consent calendar. We do not have any speaker cards or written comments on this item. Do any board members wish to remove any items from the consent calendar? We do have one staff poll, Mr. Superintendent Kern.
Yeah, I'd like to pull item G5, the school plans for student achievement.
Okay, item G5 has been pulled by staff. Is there a motion at this time to approve items G1 through G4 and items G6 through G10? It's been moved by Dr. McKibben. Is there a second? It has been seconded by Ms. Costa. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye, that was unanimous. We are now at our pulled item. Superintendent Kern, item G5 was pulled.
So this is the SPSAs for each of our schools. And we got some information today, late, actually very, very late in the day, related to one of the schools' SPSA. So we're going to pull Star King's SPSA at this point in time, get a little bit more information, and we'll bring that back at the following meeting, at the first meeting in October. So we would like to have the board take action on all the remaining SPSAs except for Star King's, which we've removed.
Thank you, Superintendent Kern. Any questions or comments at this time? Ms. Creason.
Superintendent Kern, can you just share the process for the building of the plans?
Thank you, Ms. Bassinelli, for joining us.
So the process started last year for school sites. In December, they received information related to the distribution of funds, both for LCFF supplemental and also Title I. They originally had a date of June 10th to turn in their plans. The prior to that date, the full process, there's a needs assessment that each school site engages in. They engage in collecting anecdotal data from the school in terms of empathy gathering, as well as looking at school data. And they then, that then informs their actions. And they meet with their school leadership team. They also meet with the school site council, various stakeholder groups at the school to really talk through the actions identified in the plan. And when, as it's being developed, they then that will meet with the school site council to get feedback and ultimately approval on the plan.
I appreciate that. So it really is not the district imposing a plan. It's a very collaborative process with the school site and includes the stakeholder group, which is the site council.
The school site council, yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any further questions or comments? Is there a motion at this time to approve G5 as amended, removing Star King's SIPSA, removing the SIPSA for Star King K-8 school? All right, I'm just gonna pick. It's moved by Ms. Creason, seconded by Mr. Hernandez. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye, that was unanimous. Thank you all. At this time, we are now at item I1, enrollment trends and updates. This will be a Superintendent Kern and Mr. Camarda item.
Thank you, Board President, members of the board, Ms. Cunningham, and community members. Tonight, Mr. Camarda and I are going to provide some information related to historical and forecasted enrollment. And so once we get that PowerPoint up there, we'll jump in. But part of this presentation is really going to provide us a launch point for some future agenda items as well. And so I'll kind of speak to those as we get there.
And before we proceed, I just, we don't have the screens up here on the dais. My colleagues, you do have your packets, but I know that that's sometimes a little bit easier. And I think staff's working on it.
Yeah, they do.
They did before. Yeah, so the public could see the presentation once it's back up. We'll take a brief pause. We're good to go. Thank you, team.
All right, if you want to go ahead and go to their. Okay, go ahead and go to the second slide if you would mind. So tonight we're going to just share some information. And then as I mentioned, Mr. Camarda is going to go through some more specifics from throughout the district. But this first slide really just shows the various different configurations that we have throughout the district. And we work with a firm called Davis Demographics to help us with our staffing projections, enrollment projections. And Davis Demographics works with districts throughout the United States. And they have said that they have not seen a more complex system in the entire United States than what we have. And that's really around, we have so many different grade configurations. When you think about high school having block, non-block, when you take into consideration schools that don't have any boundaries, we just have a lot of unique factors that are not normal to school districts, which kind of creates challenges for them, but it also creates challenges for us when we look at projecting and staffing and a number of those things. So you can really see how many different configurations we have in that first slide.
We might need our presenters to prompt to the next
Yep.
slide. Okay.
So when we think about what shapes the system, obviously the education code provides the guidance for us. And when we think about the education code, it actually speaks to things like open enrollment and choice and the opportunities for people to make decisions. Now, when we look at our system and we think about community and resources, our community has really helped us develop our unique instructional programs. Some examples would be International Baccalaureate, our Rapid Learner programs, open schools, dual immersion Montessori, and even artful learning. those really came out of interest of the community. And expansion of that, we originally started with IB at high school, and then that started to get pushed down into middle, and then we've expanded that all the way. And that was really through the needs assessment that we heard over the years. Even as we've done strategic planning at school sites in years past, each school kind of identified their own unique niche that they wanted to see. And we want to continue to see that. We have seen at times when the district has tried to make top-down decisions and push programs on schools, that hasn't been nearly as successful as when they have been born from within the system by students, staff, or the community. When we think about resources, we do operate in a system of finite resources. We only have so many resources, and so we are limited in that area. You want to go back, Frank? Thank you. Actually, go to the second. Keep going back, two more. One more. There you go. Thank you. And then when we think about choice has always been something that has been part of our system. When we think about unboundaried schools and we think about the opportunity for people to choose where they want to potentially open enroll their systems, but we think about voice and the impacts that that has as well. Good examples of that are currently when we are having some conversations at some of our high schools around whether or not they want to move from a traditional to a block. That's a discussion that happens at the school site level, involves the community, involves the staff, and then ultimately decisions are made from there. Go ahead and go to the next one. I think they are controlling the back, Frank. Thank you. So this slide just gives you a good example when we talk about the different configurations and the various parts of the district, because Frank is really going to break down his presentation looking at the west, the central, and the east end of the district. So this shows folks, when we think about that, how the breakdowns happen. You have, for example, in one of those regions, you have two K-8s, another, you have two K-8s, and then in one you have three. So it really varies by the different regions, what the programs are. Next slide. So this last year, I'm going to start with open enrollment and kind of go around. We have had really robust open enrollment in this district for many, many years. We're actually going to be coming back to the board with a workshop on October 26th to discuss this, really discuss what the law requires us to do, and then look at what are the potential changes or impacts that our open enrollment has on our programs. When we look at instructional programs, obviously we have unique instructional programs throughout the district that people may choose to go to. We've already talked about the grade configurations and the impact that has on enrollment. We have some regions of the district where we may not have any sixth grade in elementary schools. And then we have other regions where we may have an entire region that has sixth grade. Really, those decisions years ago were based on kind of the choices the community was making and whether or not we were seeing those sixth grade programs continuing to have full classes. And if they were, then they stayed there. If they weren't, over time, those individuals transferred to middle school programs. The last two, facility capacities, obviously we only have so much space in our schools. So we do have some schools where we are at full capacity and we have waiting lists. That happens at both elementary, middle, and high school. And so last thing that we think about there is our school boundaries. And this is something that in some districts, you will see adjustments made to school boundaries probably much more frequently than we ever have. And it's probably a conversation that we need to have. An example of how school boundaries affect us is we have a school like Will Rogers right now that is right on the border of its school. It's right across the street from Del Campo, but really students that go there, their home high school is San Juan High School. Part of the challenge is they're right across the street from Del Campo, but they're not that far away from Barrett. If we were to rebuild our district now, we probably wouldn't put the schools maybe in some of the places that we've had. We would look to have more centralized locations. So do we need to have some school boundary conversations around that? Again, when we think about our West End schools, We haven't adjusted boundaries out there as we rebuilt schools. Dyer Kelly, we rebuilt that school. We expanded the size of the school. We did not adjust boundaries. And we're really seeing the growth in our West End. So again, I think as we hear the information from Mr. Camarda and we bring items to you at future agendas, we need to be thinking about issues like school boundaries, capacity, and how each of these things affect. So Frank, with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Superintendent Kern, and good evening, President Viasquez, members of the board, and Ms. Cunningham. Can I have the next slide, please? I was going to elaborate a little bit on the complexity of our system through Davis Demographics, but Superintendent Kern did a good job explaining that we do have a very complex system, and they do agree with us that we are extremely complex out of most of their clients. So thank you again for that, Superintendent Kern. Tonight, I'm going to share with you a 5-year historical data, as well as 3 years of enrollment projections. In our 5-year historical data, we have 2 data points for us to refer to. One is going to be our resident boundary student counts, and 2 are going to be our actual enrollments. In our 3-year forecast, we will have 1 data point, which our resident student counts only we have 5-year top 5-year increases and bottom 5-year decreases. For the board's clarification, I just want to remind the board that resident student information means that students who reside or are projected to reside within a particular school's boundary. So all those kids that reside within a particular boundary, we're going to talk about that. We're also going to be talking about our actual enrollment, which includes total number of students choosing to attend that school within their boundary, minus the transfers out, and then adding the transfers in for what the actual enrollments are going to be for those particular schools. For the purpose of displaying the information in a manner that is user-friendly, we split the district up in 3 distinct regions. As you can see on the slide, we have our East, our Central, and our West regions. They are not only geographically split, they're demarcated by color codes. We used our K through 5, our 6 through 8, and our 9 through 12 boundaries to create each region. Also within your packet, you're going to find that there's tables of supporting documentation on all of our schools. Next slide, please. Let's go ahead and take a look at our resident combined region historical K through 5 totals. We're going to go back and look at 2016 through 2020. I'd like to draw your attention to the lower right-hand corner of the slide. The largest drop in our student counts were in the central part of our district. And the second would be our east side of our district. As you can see from the information on the right-hand slide, we've experienced significant growth in our western region of 900 students, 900 K through 5 students, for a total net decline of 103 students combined. Draw your attention up to the left-hand corner of the slide. You'll find the top 5 resident K-5 schools with net growth, and below you will find the 5 schools who experience the highest net losses. Next slide, please. Let's take a look at some of our specific geographical locations, focusing on the West regions, our historical K through 5 enrollment, and our resident trends. From the previous slides, you're going to see that we're experiencing in most of our K through 5 growth in the Western region. Dyer Kelly, Star King, Greer, and Del Paso Manor experiencing both the largest increases, both in resident counts and in our actual enrollments. Next slide, please. Let's take a look at our central region. We're experiencing our largest net declines in both our resident and our actual enrollments. Mariposa, Arlington Heights, Lichen, and Skycrest with the largest net declines in both resident and actual enrollments. And we have one outlier, if you notice on that slide, which is Carriage, that experienced the highest loss of actual enrollment within a 5-year period. Next slide, please. Let's go ahead and take a look at our East region, where we're seeing the second challenging net declines in our resident counts, as well as our actual enrollments. Northridge, Oakview, Pershing, and Woodside experiencing the largest net declines. Now, in actual enrollment, you're going to find this, there's some specific schools in there that have some net increases regardless of their declines in enrollment counts. And most notably, you're going to notice that for Pershing and Oakview Elementary School. Next slide, please. Let's take a look at our 3-year K-5 forecasted resident student counts, all of our regions combined. I'd like to draw your attention to the lower right-hand corner. We continue to see losses in 2 of our regions, most notably our central region. And consistent with our historical figures, we're projecting an increase in resident student counts in our west region of approximately 199 students. Draw your attention up to the left-hand corner, and I want to make one correction on the slide there. Left-hand corner is 5 years worth of data. Bottom is 3 years for budgeting purposes. The upper left-hand corner is 5 years, and we use 5-year forecasted data to plan school facilities because 3 years is a little, it would put us up against the wire to be able to construct anything in a timely manner. So I want to show the board that. So we look at our top left-hand corner, K-5 forecasted counts. For our top 5 areas of projected growth, we're going through again 21 through 25. Same with the areas of decline, again 5 years below our 5 areas that are on the bottom section of that. You'll notice the declines in those areas in our forecasted projections. Slide 11, please. So let's transition over to our 6-8 overview. We use our middle school boundaries again to determine our specific regions. Next slide, please. Let's look at our middle school regions combined. Again, bottom right-hand corner is our combined resident counts. We find that our net declines are a bit different than our K-5 counts. East region experienced the largest decline, Central being second. And consistent with our K through 5, our West region has experienced growth of about 362 students with a combined total decline in our 6-8 resident populations of about 91 students. Again, on the top left corner, we see our resident 6-8 student counts and our top areas of growth from 2016 to 20. Encina and Stark King are most notable in their growth. Below 6-8 counts for bottom 5 areas of decline. And most notable in those declines would be Carnegie and Pasteur. Go ahead and go to numbers. Next slide, please. Let's look at our West region, historic 6-8 resident enrollment trends. We see most of our resident and actual enrollments increased with the exception of Sierra Oaks with declines in both resident and actuals, and Edison with a slight decrease in our resident counts and an increase in actual enrollment over that 5-year period. Next slide, please. Go ahead and take a look at our central region. We have decreases in this region, most notably Will Rogers and Sylvan Middle Schools, but in our actual enrollments, we see increases at Sylvan, we see increases at Barrett. And that's that actual enrollment I was talking about earlier. Next slide, please. Let's go ahead and take a look at our East region where we're experiencing the largest declines in resident student counts. Carnegie, Pasteur with the largest declines over the 5-year period. Pasteur, Woodside, Twin Lakes did experience some moderate growth in actual enrollments within that 5-year period. Next slide, please. We're going to go ahead and look at our forecasted 6 through 8 data. Draw your attention again to the bottom right-hand corner of the slide. Our combined region resident, our combined region resident 6-8 forecasted student counts. Central forecasted to drop about 147 students over 3 years, East being second, and West with a notable growth of about 283 students, continuing that pattern of growth on the west side of our district. Our combined 6-8 3-year forecast, again, 74 students. Again, top left-hand corner of the slide, the story remains very consistent. The 6-8 population, our West region is forecasted to increase over 600 students. And again, that's over a 5-year period for facilities planning purposes only. Central experiencing resident decline, Sylvan the highest, like in Barrett, Carnegie with similar declines again over that 5-year period for planning. Next slide, please. Let's take a look at 9-12. Again, we used high school boundaries to go ahead and demarcate those regions. Next slide, please. Okay, all regions combined, we grew 542 students, consistent with K-8, the West being, all of our K-8 consistent with the West being the biggest driver of our increases. Again, upper left-hand corner, we see Mira Loma, Rio, and Sena with the largest resident growth, slight losses at San Juan, Mesa Verde, and Casa Roble. Next slide, please. Go ahead and take a look at our region, starting with the West. As you can see, we have growth in both resident and actual enrollments. Encina, Mira Loma, and Rio Americano experiencing the largest growth. Next slide, please. Our central region, we have moderate growth, and we have decreases in both residential and actuals, as you can see on the slide. Next slide, please. Our East region, we have growth at Bella Vista, moderate decreases at Casa, Roble, Rio Americano, and San Juan in both resident and actual counts. Next slide, please. Let's look at our 3-year 9-12 forecast. West projected to increase about 238 students. Central and West will experience declines, again, for a net loss of about 115 students. Top left-hand corner, again, 21 through 25. West experiencing increases, and our Central and East continue to have some declines there. Next slide, please. Board members, I hope you found this information to be as fascinating as I find it to be. There are a few areas, again, I want to outline what Superintendent Kern said. There's a few areas I believe that detailed demographic information is extremely important and necessary. Number one, it's really important for us to understand how our 3-year projections affect increases and losses of ADA for our budget planning. That is one of our most important things to be on top of. It's also an important tool for our facilities planners to use that 5-year projection to identify growth and losses for the purpose of modernization efforts. I think the information can also assist us, again, in future conversations around examining our boundaries and maybe doing some boundary redistricting if it's necessary. I think it can help inform our open enrollment practices. I think as Superintendent Kern alluded to, we're going to bring information to the board, and we're going to be looking at transfer data of K through 5, 6, 8, and 9, 12 of where our students reside and where they actually attend school. I think you'll find that quite interesting. I think we'll take a look at our grade configuration. It's important to look at that and how they're being utilized. And also, I think it's possible to use this information for some targeted marketing campaigns where we do have some losses, but we understand where they're at. And I think some marketing might be able to be useful in those particular different situations. And I think the most pressing thing I think we need to address is the impacts right now in the West for Star King, Arcade Middle School. And I think citing the best location for the new Katherine Johnson Middle School, it will be extremely important and a decision that we're going to make that's going to last for decades to come. So this demographic information is going to be important to the decision-making of where Katherine Johnson Middle School lands. So I want to thank you, board members. With that, I can take any questions that the board may have. And if there's any questions that I cannot answer tonight, I would follow up with the board with a subsequent board communication. So thank you, board members.
Thank you, Mr. Camarda and Superintendent Kern. We do have visitor comments on this item, so one moment as I pull up that spreadsheet before I move to my colleagues for discussion. We have one public comment at this time. Chris Fish, please offer your public comment. As just a friendly reminder, the limit is to 2 minutes. Please begin when you're ready.
Yeah, I'll keep it good. First, I wanted to thank our speaker. This was amazing data. It just opened my eyes to just what was going on within the district, within movement. But I did note with Mr. Kern is he had talked about choice in education, open enrollment, giving people the opportunity to choose their schools. And I'm going to go right back to the vaccine and mask mandates. These are not a choice for students, faculty, or staff. I would like to see this board use the data that we have. We can see that in the East, we are losing students, that there is a decline. I think there is an opportunity for you to use the information about the faculty, the staff, and the students that choose not to be vaccinated or choose not to be masked, to come up with a program to accommodate them, to give them a choice and see what we can do to work within the mandates that are coming down with the additional funds that we have to accommodate those students, the same as we would with any students with IEPs. Is we want to look at a way that we can cut down the controversy and work within the community. These losses, I'm a local realtor, and I can tell you, we have a lot of people who have the ability to move. They are moving or putting their kids in private school to where they're getting out of the public system. I see a lot of positive things, more than what I expected when I walked into this meeting. So I'm going to implore you to put this on the agenda for the next board meeting, is to talk about choice and finding choice for, again, parents, students, faculty, and staff to avoid these mandates and keep up the enrollment and the good work of the board. Thank you.
Now we'll turn to my colleagues for questions or comments on the presentation. Thank you, Mr. Camarda, for rejoining us. Do any of my colleagues have questions or comments at this time? Ms. Costa.
First of all, thank you so much for a very comprehensive report. It really was, I spent a long time analyzing all of the data, and I know that I could probably spend a lot more time. So this is one I'm saving to go back as a reference item. First question deals with the large declining enrollment. What factors are affecting the schools, in your opinion, with large declining enrollment? And are we tracking where students are going, either to other school districts, out of the district, independent study, charter, private, whatever? So is there a tracking system for that? And do we have any idea why the decline for the central and eastern part of the district?
Ms. Costa, I think I would be making assumptions. I do not know the why exactly why we are having some declining enrollment in specific regions. I do believe we do have some data in our enrollment office that could tell the story of where some of our students are going. I do not have that data readily available, and I'm not sure how detailed it is from our central enrollment. So I think we would have to dig in a little deeper to talk about what the whys of some of our decreases.
Yeah, and I would build off that. It's pretty challenging to track, really. We don't have the staff necessary to follow up with all the families that leave. When we get CUME requests, we know where they're going. But even at the school level, that's a very, very challenging thing to do. We are seeing in certain areas, though, just not the number of students historically. And where we're seeing, when you looked at the West End, and we're seeing that's where a lot of our refugee population is being settled in. We're seeing more apartment complexes being built. That really speaks to why that growth is taking place. And you look at the east end of the district, there really isn't even opportunities for new developments to go in as well.
Thank you. And that leads into the next question about areas where we have on the West End with the great growth. I know that with the many committees that you are a part of, that you're using processes to keep us from overloading a particular school. Could you just address that a little bit more? You started to talk about it in your presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you noticed on the schools that I mentioned, Dyer Kelly, Greer, Del Paso Manor, Star King, a little bit of Cottage in there, you'll notice that we focused our attention in our facilities modernization program as one of the tools that we use to decide what schools should be modernized. We used our forecasted data. I think we used it quite well to be able to project the size of the schools that we're going to need. You look at Dyer Kelly's historical 5-year average, I think you'll see there's been substantial growth within Dyer Kelly. You see it in Greer, you see it at Del Paso Manor. Star King, we're putting a couple of new classroom wings there to absorb some of the growth there. So this information, again, extremely important for us to forecast where we believe we need capacity. We study capacity all the time. So we're trying to make informed decisions on where, as one tool. We also use our master plan to look at our assessed needs. And it just so happens that our west side is some of our oldest schools with our highest population growth that was limited in capacity. So we had to react and we reacted to that. And that's why you see some of our larger schools and some of our larger resident population actual enrollments coincide with the building program.
I think it even, when we look at what we're seeing happen at some of those elementary schools, that growth is going to start to bubble up to the middle schools. So
Right.
we want to real soon be making really sound decisions related to facilities that may need boundary adjustments so that 50 years from now, people can go, okay, we made the right decision. Whether did we move this school here? Did we rebuild this school? That's what needs to happen. And if we're not out in front of that now, we're going to have a real problem finding seats in the West End for middle school students.
Yeah, that's correct. It concerns me. The arcade school is is impacted, Star King's impacted. And we need to look at the areas of our 6 through 8 offerings within the northwest corner of our district and also the southwest corner. Do we have enough capacity to absorb the increases that we see coming up through the system from the middle school and up to the high school level? So we're closely, Director Arps and I are looking very closely at that data to make recommendations to the board in the future, specifically about arcade and specifically about Katherine Johnson Middle School.
And my last question, Mr. Kern mentioned the refugee population, and as we read the media stories and the projection of the number of refugees who may be coming to Sacramento, will we have enough capacity on the West End? And I know that puts you into fortune teller range, but will we have enough capacity to serve these students?
You know, when Dr. Calvin did an update on potential refugee population, it made me very nervous. It's very difficult to forecast. They do not show up on any census data. They don't show up. They do show up, and I think there are some mechanisms as we get closer in some of those numbers. It's hard to say if we do have the capacity. We do have very large schools. Again, we built in some growth in some of those schools. And the reason why we built that growth in is we want to be able to have the expansion and contraction of enrollment as we see declines. We have additional space and schools will fill those spaces up. And if we have increases in resident and actual enrollments, we'll have the space to go to potentially our maximum. And if we need to add capacity, we'll see that, hopefully see that coming. And I would be working with Director Nick Arps, our facilities construction, to add capacity where it was necessary.
Thank you again. Great report.
Ms. Creason.
Thank you for the report. It was neat to see it all charted out like that. It was really helpful to wrap my head around it. So I do have a couple of questions. And I get it, it would probably be really hard to implement. And this is not the time for me to ask for anything new, but it would be cool to have an exit interview of some sort to get an idea of the why. And I know that's way easier said than done, but I agree, just that information would be really helpful to know, because I think that there has to be a multitude of reasons. And I know that I've heard that, you know, people have less kids now. People are having less kids, and I'm not sure, you know, is that hitting school age, you know, and that's something I think about too. Just, are there kids to go to school at the numbers that they were 10 years ago? So it would be nice to consider when we have the bandwidth to consider that.
Ms. Creason?
Yep.
We actually have provided in the past, when families leave, we've done some exit interviewing through emails.
Oh.
Unfortunately, a lot of people that are leaving,
They don't do it.
they don't take the time to actually follow through and fill it out because they're kind of on to their next site. I'll try and go back and see if I can dig up, you know, anything that we have gotten on that, but we tried that for a while and it was a lot of effort with
For-
very little return.
Okay, no, thank you for that. And anything we do have, that would be, if it's, you know, retrievable, that'd be cool. Thank you. Just curious, when was the last time we adjusted boundaries?
Over 10 years ago, about 10 years ago, some limited boundary adjusting, but we didn't take a very comprehensive look at the entire district. I think we need to look at our West End first because there's a lot of imbalances within the Churchill, Star King, again, some other areas that have very large growth. Some schools who have very small resident, I'll use Arden as an example, has a very small resident student population, but high actual enrollment. So do we expand those enrollments out. Those are some of the things that we need to do. So it's been over 10 years.
Thank you. You mentioned a marketing campaign of sorts. What's your vision for that?
Well, I think if there's an opportunity to do a capture rate study, I think a capture rate study will be able to tell us, potentially how many students do live in a specific geographical location. And if we're capturing all those students within our enrollment projections. And if we are not, how do we market towards those students to come back to our schools and choose San Juan as an option for them?
Got it. And something that we've talked about before, we have some really neat CTE programming that's like our best kept secret. And I know staff does all that they can, to get the word out. But folks just still don't know. And when they do know, they're usually already in high school and they're probably not going to move. So as that campaign starts, if that could be I'm sure you're already thinking about that. If that can be a component too, and way younger, way earlier, because I think about my own kid and he makes his decisions based on friends. That's why he wanted to go where he goes. And because his grades were good, I let him do that. But if he and his friends had known 3 or 4 years or earlier, that could have been a group decision. We all want to go to, I don't know, I'm not even going to make, because he's a chess kid, so it probably doesn't work for him. But, it can maybe influence those decisions earlier on. And I don't think parents really know either. Don't know to even ask. I think a lot of us make our decisions based on just how we can get our kids to school. Just, yeah.
Yeah, I would mention that I was a chess champion in 5th grade, so that chess is near and dear to my heart.
I'm going to have Kaden give you a call. I would like to see that.
There were three people in his class, so.
But to elaborate a little bit on career technical, we've worked very closely with Brett Wolf. We've developed, as you know, and this board has approved many projects related to career and college readiness, Casa Roble, Del Campo. We're looking on the west side and try to develop some programs and pathways there. So we are highly aware that there are careers out there that warrant some career technical skills, and we're trying to offer those up as we work through some of these modernizations and work with Director Brett Wolf on that. Yeah.
Which is wonderful. I think that, we have to offer both to our students.
Yeah.
I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. McKibben.
I have a serious.
And actually,
Thank you.
before you begin,
Okay.
we can hear the whole room. And so I'm just going to ask, it's a little bit distracting if folks can have side conversations outside. That would be greatly appreciated. Please proceed, Dr. McKibben.
Okay. As I look at these data, what the facility modernization data, and I saw what looked like some correlations between the newness of the schools, those that had gone through facility modernization and those that hadn't, with some noted exceptions related to the pluses and minuses. Am I correct in seeing that those schools that have made some changes, done some facility modernization frequently are those that are going on the plus way?
I mean, if we analyze the transfer data, there may be a slight case for that, but I think that just the influx of new resident students that are coming in, most notably on the west side, I think that was the reaction to it. But it's hard to correlate whether or not a new construction is attracting. I think Greer, we can say that there's been an attraction towards Greer because they haven't had the high level of resident student counts as the Dyer Kelly boundary. But I do think you can draw a correlation to it. It's just hard to substantiate with any kind of specificity of whether or not people are choosing there because it's a new school. I just think there's the sheer mass of new resident students that are coming in, driving the growth at the newer schools.
I was looking, for example, at Sylvan and saw that there was a plus at Sylvan, and that it may get to one of my points that I make a little bit later about changing the focus to a STEM focus and with the new and innovative things that were brought into that campus, I think caused some of the positive growth in that school.
I would agree with that. I mean, Sylvan's a good example of that. We did have low enrollment there. We did have resident counts that were higher. We did see growth when the new school was done. So yes, you can draw a conclusion to the central part, Sylvan Middle School did have growth, I think, based on a modernized new campus rather than the old Sylvan Middle School was built in the early 1900s. So I do think you can draw a correlation to that.
One of the other things in terms of the data, you talked a bit about K5s versus K6s. I believe Mr. Kern also mentioned that one. And can you tell me which schools have changed from K6s to K5s? And because I know that using the area that I live in, that Green Oaks had some issues related to middle school because they wanted to go to particular middle schools, but and it was a K6 school, and they had to leave at grade 5 in order to get into the middle schools that they wanted to. Can you talk a little bit about the impact of K5, K6 on your data?
I'm going to defer to Superintendent Kern. I've been here 8 years. I do not know the grade configuration on why they were. Superintendent Kern could probably elaborate a little bit more if he knows.
Yeah, I think the only school recently that became a K5 was Green Oaks. Yeah, in the last couple of years, we have some others where we've been following it, where they've had low enrolled 6th grades. And it's interesting. It's almost like what Ms. Creason said. Sometimes it goes in waves based on friends. There's a group of, they want to go to this particular school. We see a lower enrolled, then all of a sudden we see it, stabilize for a year or two. That's actually something that we'll kind of be looking at when we bring forward our K-8 presentation, is we've got some K-8s that really are struggling to maintain their enrollment. And do we continue those programs? But really it's been driven by, again, need, and so that's what happened out of Green Oaks.
Yeah, and I was actually going to be the next thing, the impact of K-8s on middle schools and the population there, using Orangeville Open and Carnegie as the example that I know the most.
Yeah, and I have a hard time. So I have a hard time, when I was principal at Carnegie, Orangeville Open was down the street from me, and I had almost 1,000 kids. So we didn't see that it had any negative impact. Ms. Townsend worked there for many years. There's something else that's affecting that right now in that area in terms of loss of enrollment. And so those are the things really that we need to dig into. But I think sometimes K-8s have had an impact, but I think over the years they've really stabilized.
Okay. My next one, can you tell me, I know of 2, can you tell me the schools that have no boundaries in the district and how those schools and their numbers, like, for example, I noticed in some of your charts, if a school had no boundaries but were in the east side or in I guess the west side, I didn't see the impact of those schools on the schools around them, and how the pluses and minuses of the no boundary schools affect your data.
I think you'd really be testing me as far as all our non-boundary schools.
Yeah, so we have 8.
Yeah.
El Camino, Arcade, and then 6 elementary schools. So that's actually something when we come back on the open enrollment conversation, that's going to be a part of what we're going to discuss. Because the question is, are we at a point, I think Mr. Camarda earlier talked about Star King. And I'll use Star King and our really Mission and Arcade as examples. You have individuals who live directly across the street in an apartment complex, and yet their home school is another school. Now you can try and get into that school through open enrollment, but you might not get in. So are we having a negative impact on some of our schools, our choice schools? So that's really a conversation for another day.
Yeah, okay. Because I happened to enroll in a school that was closer to where we lived than the residence school. It's been a few years ago, but that indeed did happen. You talked I can't remember what you talked about waiting lists. Now, how many schools do we have that have waiting lists right now?
We'll get that information to you. Those are things we're not going to have on the top of my head.
I can't understand that. And then my last question, fine, is that one of the things that I think, and in fact, wrote a book on it about 40 years ago, was the mission of the school, its focus, its pedagogical bent. We talked about Montessori schools and that sort of thing, have a great deal to do with how parents decide which schools they're going to have. And I think that having by training and by everything, good sense, the idea of having schools that have particular missions that draw people into those schools is one of the signature things about San Juan District. And I hope that we will, as we look at these data, understand that there are pedagogy, the focus of the school, particularly when they have a particular notion, are part of what drives people into schools and that sort of thing. And we don't do it simply on numbers, but make sure that that the marketing campaigns and that sort of thing show the kinds of uniqueness that the school district has in terms of the missions that its schools have, because the open concepts, and that we do the best job we possibly can in terms of making sure that parents know what kinds of variety and what kinds of things and what match to their students. I use my own child as an example. We went to a block school specifically because of his needs, because he was dyslexic and that sort of thing, and needed that kind of school and that kind of time, was why we chose the school, or why he chose the school that he went to, because, and those sort of things. And I think that you're mentioning of marketing and talking about choices and that sort of thing, I hope really does become part of this discussion as we go, because it's not just the neighborhood you live in, but the quality of the instruction that's being provided by the school that has to be taken care of. And the more that parents do that, the better off their kids are going to be.
I think Superintendent Kern alluded to that with the RIB program, our Montessori offerings,
Yep.
STEM and STEAM. At Sylvan Middle School, we have Artful Learning. At Ottoman, we have Science Focus at Pasadena. So I think those things are coming through. I think that you look at our high school signature projects and the strength of our high schools as far as the projects that were created there and developed. The science wings at Mira Loma, Bella Vista. I think you're seeing some of those themes there. So you absolutely could include that in a form of communication of choice. I think there's some good tools out there that we could use.
And part of that choice, I want to follow up on what Ms. Creason was talking about, that the career technical choices in the high schools and actually in middle schools to a certain extent too, are part of what make us the school district that we are. And so the notion is just not just a numbers thing, it is about the quality of the instruction we provide.
Thank you, Dr. McKibben. We do have a request to circle back. Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you so much. I just want to make a quick comment because I appreciate our community and their comments. And I think Ms. Bish alluded to how the budget is affected by how many students we have. And I wasn't going to even cover this, but when I ran for the board 11 years ago, my learning process was we need to make better, prudent decisions on how we run our district. And this is what I learned. So Ms. Bish, this is not a rebuttal or a debate. It's more for information for you in the community, is that we spend 90 cents of every dollar to a paid adult, okay? And with our declining enrollment, which is about 2%, again, these are off the cuff, can't quote me, 2%, that's about $5 million off our budget. So when you have a declining enrollment, declining budget, you have seen what our biggest job is as a school board member is, how do we continue to run a district with the money that we had, that we don't have anymore, and without the students that we don't have anymore? And there goes the magic, if you will. So it's easy to say, again, well, let's just put a new school. And by the way, 2% is about 1,000 students. That's one whole middle school in our district. So you lose one whole middle school, their staff, their teachers, their administration. You see how we run the district. So it's not easy. It's not that easy to say, well, let's put another school with these students here that have this need. Well, of course, if that is possible, we would do it. But again, the numbers don't match up. So my comment is just for information's sake, to show you it's all related to the budget. And I've been saying that for 11 years. And the key is doing the best we can with what we have. So I hope that helps, Ms. Bish.
We won't be engaging in a back and
Sorry,
forth
my
right
bad.
now.
I apologize.
Thank you, Mr. Fernandez. Do you have anything?
I will get back with you.
I'll note for the public, there's a second visitor comment opportunity.
I
but we won't be
apologize,
doing
Madam
back and forth.
President, I really do.
Anything further to add? I thank you for the presentation. The numbers are certainly very, very interesting as we start to kind of endeavor down some conversations that we as a district haven't had in a while. And so I want to just thank you for the presentation and just note a couple of broader contextual things at play. I don't want to at any point dismiss the role that we play in attracting students and in attracting families to our district. However, I think it is important to note that we are in the midst of one of the largest population declines, the United States as a whole, but California as well. Of course, folks are still kind of analyzing a lot of the data from the 2020 census. But so far, the population has grown at the slowest pace that we've seen since 1930, right? So that growth was at a 7% rate, whereas the year prior, it was almost 10%. So again, not to say or give up any responsibility we have every day to make sure that we're serving our families and create an environment where families want to join us. I just think that broader context is super important to keep in mind. And the other factor that I'm constantly considering and thinking about is, for the most part, I have a hypothesis. I don't know if there's data to bear it out, but a lot of families, if I were to guess, some of our neighboring districts would either be stabilizing or increasing a little bit. Probably Natomas, probably Elk Grove. My assumptions are based on the fact of housing availability. And the fact of the matter is a lot of our communities are not affordable for our families to live in. Like you have you have limited options. Just as someone who was a first-time home buyer in this district and had very narrow limitations on where I could buy, it is a challenge, and that has a direct impact on our families and where they choose to go and raise a family. And I think that's also just exacerbated by a broader inventory challenge that we face as a state that's impacting everything. Homelessness is at its highest levels. Like this is a policy piece that impacts every single thing, and us as a school district, this is how it impacts us. And so I always keep that in mind whenever I have any opportunities to advocate, whether at either at the county level or at the state level. But I think it's just an important piece to note as well. One question that I had, and I wanted to kind of check my assumption. So in looking at the numbers, kind of the decrease across age groups, right? You had very broadly a drop in K-5 of 353. And then in the middles, you had a drop of 297. And then in the high school, you had a significantly lower drop of 60. Now, I'm just gonna assume that is a function of time. But I'm curious if there's any other, as our students grow and age, we may see the correlating decline at the high school level. But I'm just curious for any additional thoughts on that. And I can see Mr. Kearns ready to jump.
Yeah, no, I think historically, when we look at that, we actually see, so if you look year by year at the number of students, we have more ninth graders than eighth graders. And what we believe happens is there are folks that make alternative choices for schools, but then come back into a public school system at the high school years because of the programs that are offered or whatever. So whether or not they're they're paying for private or they're doing something else, and then they access our system. So that is something that we see over the years. I kind of wanted to allude to when you talk about enrollment as well. There were two articles I looked at today. LA Unified lost 27,000 students this year, or 6% of their enrollment. Marin, which you would think, lost 5% of their enrollment, I think, for the second straight year. So one of the interesting things, and we'll probably be bringing something back to the board in the future, prioritizing one-time funds, is to actually put some supports in out years. So, because we don't know what it's going to look like. What are we going to rebound? We're coming off something we've never been through before. What are the implications of it? We want to be ready to address an upswing, if that's possible, even based on, the increase in refugee populations, folks coming back. But it's a challenge. It's one of those things, again, where up and down the state, we're seeing that decline. You do see pockets where there's growth, but I think you're right. It's where new housing is springing up.
Yeah, I think that's just broad context that's important to keep in mind. And even on the kind of aspect of, we've touched on it a couple of times, of the anticipated increase in population from our refugee population on the West End. I mean, even that right now is currently on pause. Like, people actually can't resettle in Sacramento County because of how acute the housing and sheltering needs are here in Sacramento County. And of course, you've seen record displacements from our neighbors to the north and to the east from fires. And so there's just a lot at play. I like to think that kind of the drop to almost 7.5% that we saw at the 2020 census point will, correct, and we'll see it come back up. But that's where I try to keep in mind that that's not something that's just going to naturally happen. It's something that we as a school district have a role to play in and have a responsibility to actively make happen, not just hope happens. So this was really interesting data. I also just want to thank my colleagues for the conversation and for the questions, and staff for the presentation. Much appreciated. Thank you, Mr. Camarda.
Thank you, board members. Thank you, President Villescaz.
Next up, we are at item I2, and I'll also just note that there are alternatives to clapping, which involve going like this or thumbs up, but just putting that out there. So we are now at item I2, Independent Study and Homeschool Update. We are joined by Ms. Schnepp and Ms. Townsend Snyder. Please begin as soon as the presentation is available to you. And I think the successful route here is just to prompt for the next slide.
We like the prompt for the next slide. We don't want to rely on a clicker.
Sounds good. Yeah, I know. So I think we're at the right presentation, but perhaps a few slides ahead. So if we can have it at the beginning of the presentation. Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Board President Villescaz, members of the board, Superintendent Kern, and Ms. Cunningham. The team is back again tonight to share with you more updates on our independent study program, K through 12. Tonight, we'll be sharing with you some highlights of the current program. We'll be sharing with you a bit about enrollment, movement into and out of the program, what it looks like within our classrooms in the independent study piece, and then the requirements and how we're meeting those as set forth by AB 130, as you know, in July of this year. Tonight, joining me and Kristen are Holly Sobolski, Director for Elementary and K-8, and David Levis, Principal. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Holly to get us started.
Good evening. In July, legislation was passed providing more guidance around school districts' offerings to independent study students. It mandates a K-12 program for the 2022 school year, and it also mandates both synchronous instruction and daily live interactions for all grade levels. The programs must track and monitor students' daily participation and provide a tiered re-engagement plan if students miss a certain amount of work or attendance, depending on the grade level. The instructional minutes, ratios, and curriculum must be equivalent to what's offered in person. And when a family wants to return to traditional school, we have 5 days to make that shift in enrollment. At the elementary level, we have 2 instructional models that fall under this legislation, TK5 independent study, as well as TK8 homeschool. In the following slides, we'll go deeper into each of the models at all of the levels. Next slide, please. What you see here is the elementary independent study at current enrollment. We currently have a wait list of 43 students. And so far, we've had 16 of our students return back to their schools of enrollment. You can see that our most impacted grade levels in this program are 3rd and 5th grade. Next slide, thank you. At the TK8 homeschool level, you can see here, we have a wait list of 67 students at this grade in this program, and we've had 13 return back to their school of enrollment from this program. Next up, David Levis is going to share about our secondary programs.
Good evening. Currently, we have 3 different models. We have 6th through 8th grade for independent study, and that's brand new this year. And then we also have our traditional El Sereno independent study program that we've had for over 30 years. We have about 60 students that are on the wait list for our high school program. We've been able to hire an additional teacher. So as soon as we can have that teacher on board, we'll be able to take off 33 students from that wait list. For the middle school right now, we're currently at a pretty good equilibrium with only a handful of students who've gone back to their original schools. We can go to the next slide. For Meraki High School, it is also an independent study model. It is more of a hybrid model, but we are pretty stable where we have been in years past. One new addition is the pilot for 8th graders. So if you go to the next slide. For our 9-12 model, one of the new additions this year is both virtual and in person, is a math lab that's available for students. It allows students to be able to come in and get the additional like one-to-one support. We also are able to to meet the needs of the time. So we've doubled in size in our enrollment, what has been our normal traditional enrollment. And we've also been able to increase some of our staffing to provide supports for A through G requirements. For El Sereno 6-8, this is a new program totally. We've been able to bring on 4 staff members finally who are supporting the needs of our students. In addition to this, we have an evening TOSA that is new this year that supports students more of the evening hours because independent study, you're supposed to be able to do it anytime you want to. And in addition to that, for subject matter specific, we have teachers that are available for an hour every day to provide support for families who might need that additional support. For Meraki High School, it is very much a hybrid model for students to be able to attend both in person and virtually. Working on independent study work and then coming in and getting support. We have started a hybrid or a new pilot with 8th grade students, and it's been really successful. We call them ciphers, and it's been a great opportunity for students to learn kind of what the Meraki way is, and then be able to adapt into this new format.
In the independent study program at the elementary level, the program does continue to grow at a very steady rate. Most families are attending this program due to varying COVID concerns, although some of families are attending because their students just find more success in this type of format. We do offer family orientations once a week to give families an opportunity to hear details about the program, as well as ask questions in a live format and get answers right there. We're continuing to hire teachers in response to family requests to be in the program, and we're holding wait lists so that families can be moved into the program as soon as spots open up. We're also really excited to report that we are saving seats at schools of enrollment so that families don't lose those spots. We currently have 10 teachers, and they're a really dynamic, flexible, and dedicated group of educators that I'm really excited to be working with. Next slide, please. The student day really does vary depending on the particular class schedule. Each teacher has office hours that are built into their schedule daily, and office hours are really intended to be time for families to connect with the teacher if needed to problem solve, get help with assignments, or handle anything that comes up that needs some attention.
Students also have daily time with their teachers in class for learning time. Many students also have the opportunity to engage in small group and one-on-one time as needed to address the varying needs of students. All classes are learning California standards and are engaging in varying social emotional learning as well. Teachers are using either Google Classroom or Seesaw, depending on the age level, to house class info and manage the students' asynchronous work. For the homeschool program, it's a unique educational opportunity that we're able to offer for families to engage in the educational process directly with their students. So families work with a certificated teacher to teach their students California standards using homeschool-friendly curriculum, which is supplemental curriculum. While enrollment is significantly down from last year because we do have traditional independent study program for families, it's still growing with the wait list while we work on hiring new staff to fill in those requests.
And for next steps, we are obviously being very flexible with where we are with enrollment. We're going to continue to hire staff to meet the demands based on student interest and student needs. We are meeting regularly with HR to review the waiting lists and move forward with hiring. We're also supporting teaching staff and students with curriculum, assessment, and those engagement strategies that they've talked about earlier in the presentation. And then we continue to monitor and support transition into and out of the programs as needed. So this again is a very fluid process for us as we meet these new requirements. So that concludes our presentation. And at this time, we're available to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much to the team for the presentation. It's much appreciated. I believe we do have one speaker comment on this item. I'll remind visitors that comments are limited to 2 minutes and you can come introduce yourself at the dais.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Monica Stone. I have a couple of questions. Dang. That was quick.
1 second while we get it reset.
No, that's okay.
And you're good to go.
All right. So my children attend a charter school through San Juan Unified School District. Thank you, Dr. McKibben, for the school choice for Montessori. Anyhow, I have a question about AB 130 and it expiring next year. So this pandemic doesn't seem to be going anywhere. These masks seem to be forever. We've got 14 days to slow the curve and we're 18 plus months in. Are there any plans that might be in place for next year for students that want to continue this program? There seems to be a need for it, a desire for it if there's a wait list. My children are in school, they're not an independent study, but I have considered moving them possibly to a homeschool or an independent study based on not wanting to do this anymore, wanting my kids to be able to be kids and go to school and interact with their peers and not have this oppressive learning environment where we're just stuck in this forever COVID loop. I appreciate everything that you guys are doing, but our kids are definitely suffering. So what I'm asking is if this expires next year and this is not an option for these kids, because some of those kids just don't want to do this anymore. So they're literally at home away from their peers, suffering, socially, emotionally suffering because they don't want to do this at school every day. Is there a plan maybe moving forward if this AB 130 expires and independent study is not an option? Do we think that this might be something that San Juan Unified might continue? And if there are vaccine mandates that come down and those that have the freedom of choice to not vaccinate if they choose not to, based on science and their personal decisions, will they have an option to continue in a program like this? Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. That is all of the public comments on this item. So now I will turn it to my board colleagues for any questions or comments at this time. Mr. Hernandez.
Very quick question. You mentioned, Ms. Schnipp, that the program is very fluid, right? Even to the point that if we have a student independent study, and they wanted to go back to traditional, we save their spot. I mentioned that's correct. So if you're in traditional high school now and you want to get into the independent study now in the middle of the school year, is that a possibility, or is there's a waiting list apparently? And how long does that wait list usually take for that child to get independent study if that's a parent's choice?
So-
I know it's not exact. Just give me an average if there is one.
So in the perfect world, if we had the teachers, they could do it immediately. And at El Sereno, we're able to do partial credit. And so there's a pretty seamless transition to be able to do that. Unfortunately, the only limitation right now is just finding teachers.
Okay, thank you.
And it's a very frustrating limitation. And it's one that, again, regionally, we talked about it last week. You'll even, if you look in the news, there was one local district that couldn't even start their independent study program at the start of this year because they had no staff. And I'm not sure they still have any staff doing it. They're just trying to find alternative ways to do it.
Ms. Costa.
Thank you for the presentation, and I really want to thank you for getting back to me with my questions and incorporating the answers into the presentation, which was truly my interest that other people hear the answers as well. So it does pay off to send the questions in advance. So thanks so much.
Ms. Creason.
Thank you for the presentation. I know we talked a lot last year when we were not on campus and then in hybrid, to ensure that we could provide options in this year. Everyone's in different spots for a whole lot of different reasons. And I do agree that it would be wonderful, and Superintendent Kern and I have talked about this. It would be great to continue some level of options for a variety of reasons post this. So I hope that we can do that. I don't know if that's something we're even ready to talk about yet.
Yeah, I was, Ms. Fiasquez and I were just saying that I appreciated the comment. I don't even think we're thinking there yet.
I get it.
I will say that what we have tried to do historically is provide those options. And again, I kind of alluded to, so we staffed, for those that are watching and the few that are here, we staffed every school like everybody would show up, because we wanted to be able to have families, if they chose to go one direction, then come back, do that. So that's creating some other challenges for us, but it's helping out in our seat-based learning quite a bit. If we decide to set aside some funds to help us in out years with one-time funds, we will be able to make similar decisions early related to staffing, because we look at our projections. We'll be doing that in December and January, and then we're meeting with schools in March to say, here's your staffing for next year. But it's a year unlike any others, and are we even going to be accurate? But if we staff pretty liberally, we should be able to come up with some alternative programs as well. But that's probably a conversation for a couple months down the road.
Totally understand. We have to just get through now. I get that, but I hope that we can continue on and have those conversations when the time is right. And this has been said 20 times, the wait list is based on staffing issues. So should we have all of the staffing, all the positions filled that are open, there would be no wait list. And I think that's a really important point to make, that, we're not, go ahead.
No, I appreciate you saying that, because like last year, for example, the homeschool program grew significantly. We went from 2 teachers to 37. And as we got close to having full courses or classes, we would just hire another teacher and hire another teacher. And we were always able to stay kind of out in front of it. This year, that's just not the case.
Yeah.
And so, I know you continue to do interviews with folks weekly. Yeah. And we're trying to recruit. We're trying to do creative things. I reached out to the county office earlier this year and said, what can we do related to our tier 3 student teachers and releasing them early? And it was kind of frustrating because the response was like, well, that's not how this works. Well, we've never done this before. So let's think creatively. And I know Mr. Rapallo, we may be making a little leverage there, but we've got folks, I think, in our schools that are student teachers that your administrators would say they're in their 3rd tier. They've been doing this for a while, who are ready to step into a classroom. Why can't we do that? So again, we're trying to come up with every creative response we can to fill the vacancies.
And I really appreciate you pointing that out, because in unprecedented times, you have to come up with unprecedented measures. And I think when the virus started we were looking at short-term responses to what we didn't know this would be going on forever. And now we have to shift into long-term changes to something that's continuing. So I just really appreciate you pointing that out. And I can understand the frustration because I get that too in my day job of, well, it's just not how it is. Well, nothing is. So I really do appreciate you calling that out. So I have a question, and I'm gonna blank on the name of the survey, but students have the opportunity to provide responses to like a student experience survey. I'm just wondering, does IS and homeschool have that opportunity to be surveyed as well?
California Healthy Kids. So someone say yes, yes.
Yes, El
Thank you.
Sereno was always an independent study. It's included in all
The
of
people,
it.
the people watching can't see the head. So that's, thank you.
I think I had one more. Okay, and IS and homeschool students, do they have the opportunity to participate in sports and other extra, which is a funny question, and this time I get that, but when there are things to offer and to go to, isn't there a way for them to participate in events and sports, even though they're in IS and homeschool?
So for El Sereno and Meraki, for the high school level, there are agreements with CIF for them to be able to participate with their resident school in those athletic programs. For the middle school, for IS, we just encourage them to do that through the community. There's all kinds of different various community efforts to be able to participate in that. Very few actual middle schools have like other like specific teams, but there aren't current like CIF regulations or anything like that for that purpose. Because they're not currently a part of those schools, then typically they're not participating in those activities.
Got it. Thank you. And so I have two follow-up questions to that. One, are we proactive or do we wait for them to come to us asking the question?
For the high school, it's dependent.
For really actually the youngers where they're.
For the youngers, it's dependent on the families to reach out to the community organizations to do that. I would say that most of the families who are participating in independent study are choosing to stay remote on purpose.
So I have a couple thoughts on that. I'm sorry. Did I cut someone off, or was that my own echo that I thought someone was talking to me? Okay. So I have a couple of thoughts to that because it's my understanding before COVID, there are people at home for other reasons other than COVID safety. And so where my thought goes is I think that we should maybe be proactive, Superintendent Kern, in getting the information out to families that even though we're not providing, because I'm thinking about my kid, there was flyers that came home from all kinds of, community sports organizations. And I'm just wondering, do those kids get them too? And I think that there would be tremendous value in that information being shared with those students as well. Yeah.
So, for example, in the elementary homeschool program, we actually contract out with vendors, lots of different vendors, piano lessons, karate, dance, singing, that families can partake in if they want to. And those advisory teachers do share those opportunities with the families.
Awesome. I just want to make sure that the opportunity is there because when you're not at school every day, you're not talking to your friends in that way every day. They just may not know. And just access and raising awareness, I think, is huge.
Well, there could be a way that we almost have almost like a community newsletter to those folks where we push some pieces out. So we could look at something like that.
I think that would be wonderful. I think that's enough for me. Thank you so much.
Dr. McKibben.
Back to the wait list. If you said it and I missed it, I apologize. But what is the wait list what's the number of the wait list that we're dealing with? And the other half of that is what happens to those kids while they're waiting?
So for high school, we have just over 60 that are on the wait list. Middle school for 6-8, we don't have anybody on the wait list. We've been able to reach equilibrium for them. Typically what takes place is they're encouraged and told to stay attending at their homeschool, and their homeschool is working with those families individually as needed.
Anyone want to volunteer on the elementary side?
So in the independent study program, the wait list is at 43. And then at the homeschool program, it's 67. And then the same is true. So we encourage families to stay at their school of enrollment until there's a spot that's open.
But you theoretically, and I think there's some reality to this, that we may have some students who are choosing to not attend school right now. And so that's a whole nother level of concern. That's problematic. Again, we don't we don't have a solution for that because, you know, you can't put them somewhere where there's no space or where we don't have a teacher.
And my second question comes out of an LCFF meeting and so forth related to those students. And I think this is probably not the right place, but I don't know what the right place is. But for those students that are being quarantined, and they might be quarantined for a period of time if one on one of these kinds of serial kinds of things. Is there any place in the independent study program to help those students who might be on quarantine?
Short term.
Short term, yeah.
Yeah, so what you're referring to is short-term independent study.
Yeah.
And so at day one, we are able to provide students who are on quarantine or are home ill for whatever reason pertaining to COVID, the lessons for that day and days coming up. So yes, short-term independent study, which is different.
Is that done by the teachers?
It's done by the classroom teacher.
In the classroom teacher?
Right, right. Different from independent study where the kids are participating, you know, long-term. That help? Okay.
Thank you. And thank you to the team for the presentation. I wrote a couple of notes that are just a little bit all over the place. So just acknowledge that from the beginning and ask you to bear with me a little bit. First and foremost, I just want to point out that all of the programs that we have discussed now predated COVID. They've seen expansion in enrollment, improvements in services, changes in curriculum, but they were all there prior and were part of a broader effort by both the board and staff to meet the needs of our students and our community. So I just kind of want to point that out. Now, of course, the growth, which with some of these programs have, the rate of growth rather was pretty unexpected. But we've been able to pivot where possible. And obviously, there are still some needs that we struggle to meet, but we will continue to try to do so. I love the addition of the evening TOSA. I think that was a singular one TOSA. It sounds like a, well, that makes sense move. But that's the first time we've done that. And that's the first time I've heard about that. I'm sure that there's more families that could benefit from that. My assumption is that one TOSA is very busy, but I invite anybody to expand or correct me on that assumption and how busy our one evening TOSA has been.
So currently in the development of it, it was around the foundation of the 6-8 middle school. And so their primary support right now is supporting those families as they navigate independent study. Many of those families have not done independent study before. And so providing that additional support in an evening mechanism to unlock tests and to be able to reach out, ask questions, get support, because each individual independent study teacher manages 33 kids. And so to have that additional one-off is a good thing.
I'll just express my enthusiasm again for it, particularly when I think about kind of our working parents or working families. I'm sure that is a resource that is very frequently used, and I was excited to hear about it. But you touched on a component that led to another question for me, which is a lot of our families might not necessarily know what they're getting into. And I heard about some of the orientations, but they all seem to be based on offering information once families have enrolled. What kind of supports are we offering prior to make sure that there is an adequate understanding of the programs and how they may or may not meet the needs of a family so that they're making informed decisions?
Before the school year, there was a big drive by the district, both via website, information, families reaching out. There's a very detailed descriptor about what independent study is. Since enrollments have began and the school years began, we actually involved the homeschool counselor. And so there is a voluntary transfer request document that's filled out. There's information that's asked a part of that application. So do they understand like what attendance means and those kinds of things? But it's very much a partnership with the counselor. So that way they can be able to get some advisement, like what kind of impact is that going to have for a high school student? What kind of impact does that have for a middle school student? So it's not something that families have to decide alone. And then we have adjusted the enrollment process for independent study where they do the orientation first before they actually formally enroll. And so they hear that information before they actually pull the trigger of, now I'm going to start independent study.
Perfect. That's the context that I was looking for, and I really, really appreciate it. And I wonder to what extent, if any, it makes sense to maybe at perhaps a not completely natural, but a point in time where we might see some transitions of students being kind of the winter break into the next semester. It might be worth doing, one or two prior to any transitions that might happen as the circumstances of our families change. And on the subject of the orientation, I noted the continuing once a week orientation. I mean, that kind of sounds like a little bit of, a troubleshooting space or answering question space. I'm just curious if there's any patterns we've seen from those once a week opportunities from our families that might help us kind of become aware of some needs or some trends amongst our families using these programs.
So at the elementary level, we are holding them weekly. Since the wait lists have started, attendance at the orientations has dropped pretty considerably. I don't know the reason behind that, but when there were lots of people coming, there was a lot of similar questions around the longevity of the program, how it compared to in-person, those types of trends.
And certainly questions around the longevity of the program are pretty natural. And I think we're going to take it month by month, semester by semester. We'll take it as we go. Okay, seeing no further comments or questions at this time, thank you all very much for the presentation and for the report. With that, we are now at item I3, sufficiency of textbooks and instructional materials. Ms. Schnapp, you're sticking with us.
Yes, I am. Good evening again. The superintendent is recommending that the board hold a public hearing and adopt resolution number 3076, stating that each pupil in each school in the San Juan district has sufficient textbooks and instructional materials. With me tonight is Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Nicole Kugel, to certify this process and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Schnapp. I declare the topic of sufficiency of textbooks and instructional materials a public hearing, and it is now open for public comment. At this time, we do not have any visitor comments or speaker cards on this item. There's no written comments. I just want to confirm with Ms. Rye. I can't see the written comments spreadsheet. Okay, great. There being no further public comments at this time, I declare the public hearing closed. At this time, I'll turn it to my colleagues for any board member questions or comments. We'll go in dais order. Ms. Creason.
Can you share? Hi, good to see you. Can you share what does instructional materials encompass? What does that mean?
Yes. So it's going to be our textbooks, our consumable materials for our students in elementary schools, TK through 5. And for the purposes of Williams, it also includes lab materials in high school, science lab materials.
Thank you, thank you. And so this does not include technology?
It does only for the Amplify ELA and Amplify Science adoptions at middle school. In order to attest that we are Williams sufficient, we do have to have Chromebooks in all of those classrooms.
But we are not required to have Chromebooks in classes unless there's an adoption associated with it.
Correct.
So I think what's happened is over time, schools may have purchased Chromebooks, for whatever reason, they had more Chromebooks, but they weren't a required Chromebook in the class.
Okay.
And then again, even the orders we made to try and replace the Chromebooks, we made those orders in spring. I wish I controlled the chip issue, but I don't. So, again, I even think the fact that we've heard from so few people about the issue really is a testament to us trying to be out in front of it. But again, we know they're going to continue to come back in. I would even say the benefit is we tried to make schools whole. They had some computers that were at end of life and it would have been on them to replace. And the district ended up stepping in and replacing those. So in years to come, that will probably likely be the school's responsibility again. So There
Yeah.
are many, many Chromebooks that have nothing to do with Williams at schools.
No, and I appreciate that. And I know it's a sensitive topic. And I just wanted to point it out because I did get a question about, are we attesting to, is this part of the package? And I wanted to be clear of what we were attesting to. So I do appreciate that. It came up today when I was at San Juan High School, and it came up during the high school reports. There were some questions about the delay in books. We've gotten briefed on that a bit, but can you just for the record state what was going on with the delay in textbooks this year?
Yeah, we experienced a number of challenges this year in terms of our instructional materials deliveries. I think number one, we had a really unprecedented level of loss of materials at all of our sites. And then number two, kind of coupled with staffing, or I'm sorry, not staffing, but shipping delays, really just created delays across the system, unfortunately, to get those books. But San Juan High School in particular is one of our audit schools. Their audit was September 10th, and they were deemed sufficient by SCOE at that time.
That's wonderful. And I think what kids want to know is it wasn't that we forgot to place an order, that the order was made far, far in advance. We just didn't get it when we expected it. I'll say it like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, as you all know, it's been a very challenging year. So we're doing the best we can.
I think even, people who have decided to remodel their homes and they ordered a dishwasher and it said 3 months and all of a sudden it was 9 months later and they were still waiting for the dishwasher. We're seeing some challenges related to those types of things. And
Yeah, no, and I get it. And I've personally experienced some of those challenges too. But I think when you're a kid just wondering where your book is and you don't know all the ins and outs, all you know is that you don't have X,
Absolutely.
It's understandable. So I was just wanting to raise it because I promised the kids that I would for the record. And so they can know that, you tried.
And I think it's good that you do, because it actually gives us an opportunity then to express that. I think one of the things we can do a better job even is at the school site level, make sure that communication is happening to our principals, and then they can, because there's a gap there sometimes for whatever reason. There was something that came across my desk today and I said, did they ask the principal? Because that was a question they should have been able to answer.
That actually came up quite a bit today. A lot of it was school site questions. And I absolutely agree that I feel that even today in this room, there's a lack of information or misunderstandings that just sometimes you hear things like, I don't know where that came from. And unfortunately, it can't be. Sometimes you can't have a dialogue. So if there's an opportunity to just ask a question, get an answer, there would be more understanding and less accusation and, just raising awareness of the issues. And it goes a long way. So, okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Sure.
Mr. Hernandez.
Nicole, forgive me for calling you by your first name because I don't even try to pronounce your last name.
It's okay.
Nicole.
Nicole's fine.
Nicole, I'm a high school science teacher, and I feel, can you help me understand why I may feel that I don't have the materials in my lab? Because I've got some emails from some teachers that are feeling that they don't have the sufficient materials that maybe they've always had in years past. Help me understand why that may be and how do we help these teachers?
Well, first, may I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
Are the concerns coming up around consumable materials, or are they coming up around more static materials like beakers and test tubes and things like that?
I don't know the answer to that. I'm
Okay.
going to say lab materials, whatever
Okay.
that means.
I'll just respond to both then.
Okay.
I think that both are a little different and nuanced. So in speaking about Williams sufficiency, we do have kind of a minimum standard of what is required for instructional material sufficiency, which is what we're discussing this evening. And it's possible that some teachers may not feel that it adequately meets the needs of their students, that they need more than what the minimum is. So that's certainly a possibility. Then I think the other side of it is consumables. As we know, science is dealing with chemicals and specimens and all kinds of things that I'm not a science teacher that I don't fully understand, but I do know that there are a lot of different consumable materials, and we do offer an allocation to all of our science teachers every year. to ensure that we are giving them some money to address the consumables and are able to purchase the materials. And, we do our best with the funding. And I think sometimes yeah, go ahead. It may not always get them everything.
One of the things that's also happened is with our increase in grad requirements around the science courses, we've had an increase in the need for more materials. We do have money allotted to support the new courses being offered. So our program specialist, Paula, is working with our science teachers. So if there's a teacher that doesn't have adequate lab materials, we would be able to help them.
Thank you very much for the explanation.
Sure.
Thank you both for answering our questions. And I'll kind of repeat, but I've noted in just to our superintendent that we have in the last year and a half become experts in public health and safety, international relations. So I still don't understand why economics and global supply chains isn't on the list, but that's fine. And so with that, I will just offer my thanks for the report and note again, it wasn't for any immediate shortages of tangible items that might exist. It wasn't that we forgot about anyone or failed to take action. It's rather that there are a lot of circumstances beyond our control at the moment. Seeing no further, it is, yes. So seeing no further comments or questions at this time, as I was getting to, this is an action item. Is there a motion to adopt resolution number 3076 stating that each pupil in each school in the district has sufficient textbooks and instructional materials in each subject that are consistent with the content and cycles of the curriculum framework adopted by the state board? It's been moved by Dr. McKibben. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Costa. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. That was unanimous. Thank you both. We are now at item I4, notice of intent to convey a permanent easement at Mesa Verde High School. Mr. Camarda and team.
Thank you, President Viasquez, board members, Superintendent Kern, Ms. Cunningham. Tonight's item is an action item. It is the intent to convey a permanent easement at Mesa Verde High School to the Citrus Heights Water Department. The superintendent is recommending that the board adopt resolution number 3082, declaring the intent to convey a permanent easement at Mesa Verde High School to Citrus Heights Water District and to call a public hearing to be held on October 26th, 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Camarda. We do not have any speaker comments or written comments on this item. Do any of my colleagues have questions or comments at this time? Excuse me. We'll go ahead in order. We have Ms. Costa followed by Dr. McKibben. Ms. Creason followed by Dr. McKibben.
Thank you for this. Just wondering, has school site been consulted and they're aware and part of the conversation?
Yeah, actually, Principal Bross was out there as we walked the easement area and worked with Citrus Heights. It'll be on the far south, running along the Mesa Verde property line.
And he's supportive?
Yes.
Cool. Thank you.
Dr. McKibben.
On the mundane side, there are two, it looks like the same piece, but one's permanent and one's temporary. Can you explain to me what the difference is?
Yeah, I-4 will be the permanent easement for the maintaining of that conveyance of that utility easement. I-5, when I get to it, it'll be the construction easement. So it'll be temporary just to provide enough space for construction
Its
materials.
construction is the temporaries. Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Okay, seeing no further comments or questions, this is an action item. Is there a motion to adopt resolution number 3082, declaring the intent to convey a permanent easement at Mesa Verde High School to the Citrus Heights Water District and to call a public hearing on October 26th? It's been moved by Ms. Creason. Is there a second? And seconded by Mr. Hernandez. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye, that was unanimous. We are now at item I-5, notice of intent to convey a temporary easement at Mesa Verde High School. Mr. Camarda.
Thank you, President Viasquez. Again, this is an action item. The superintendent is recommending that the board adopt resolution number 3084, declaring the intent to convey a temporary easement at Mesa Verde High School to Citrus Heights Water District and to call a public hearing to be held on October 26, 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Camarda. We do not have any speaker comments or written comments on this item. Do any board members have questions or comments? Ms. Creason?
It's the same one. It's calling good. Let me see it. Is the school site aware and supportive? I'm sure it's yes, right? Same conversation, same walk.
Same thing. Mr. Bross was out there when we actually walked the site because we are going to do a larger project with the tennis court. So it included the tennis court. The easement is located on the again, the south side, the back of the tennis courts. So he is aware and he did walk it. So yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none. This is an action item. Is there a motion to adopt resolution number 3084 declaring the intent to convey a temporary easement at Mesa Verde High School to the Citrus Heights Water District and to call a public hearing on October 26th? Thank you, Ms. Creason. We've got a motion. Is there a second? It's been seconded by Dr. McKibben. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. That was unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Camarda. We are now at item I6, CSBA Directors at Large nomination. This is a discussion item followed by possible action, depending on the discussion. The CSBA Board of Directors is comprised of directors from throughout the state, and there are 5 directors at large. The CSBA Directors at Large, African American and American Indian, are elected in odd number years. So that's the item before us now. We do not have any speaker cards on this item or written comments, and so I will turn it to my colleagues. Are there any, is there any desire at this moment to recommend the nomination of candidates to fill Directors at Large seats for African American or American Indian on CSBA Board of Directors? Seeing none. There being no nominations at this time, there will be no action. With that, we are at item J, board reports. We have,
Why are we electing or nominating based on?
we have visitor comments at the end, and it's also just it's a separate organization. I or staff can follow up on the CSBA and the roles that they play, but there's also a visitor comment period. So we are now at item J, board reports. Are there any board reports from my colleagues? Ms. Creason.
I'll be quick. I have said it several times. I visited San Juan High School today and it was a wonderful visit. As we all know, we got several advocacy emails from the group. So I wanted to just introduce myself and just kind of, put a name behind the email, which I think went a really long way. And we talked a lot about advocacy and how, respect gets you a long way and speaking up also gets you a long way. And it was really well received. I mean, the kids had a ton of questions and we got to talk a lot about advocacy planning and where are the leverage points, and talked a little bit about the role of the school site versus the board versus the, who's doing what and where the decisions made. And I did make the commitment to work with them on whatever they wanted to do. It's maybe not a board action. I may not be a decision maker, but I could help point them in the right direction and develop advocacy plans. So it was a really great conversation. So I really enjoyed my time over there. That school site is going through some transition right now and the kids are absolutely feeling it. So any love we can show them would be greatly appreciated. One of the many things that came up was their club sites. Their clubs need money, and they're having a really hard time with fundraising. So that's you may remember me asking the Rio team, well, how are you addressing that? I have no idea. So I don't know if that's, some kind of support that can be provided from district just to give them some ideas. The teacher in the room really couldn't, give them any ideas either. And I didn't really know what to say. So it's just something that I wanted to raise here.
So the discussion that we had the other week about the $500,000.
Yeah.
That's what that's about.
Well, it's on record. I could say it, right? To them.
Yeah, I would encourage them to reach out to their administrator and get the appropriate information as to
Talk to your administrator.
as to how that would work.
Okay. Okay, that's wonderful. And the other thing that came up was water, wanting more water station in other locations, and it sounds like that may be in the works as well. So just wanted to share that. Also wanted to share, this is actually a kind of a dual board report with me and President Viesca. So I'll say half of it and save half of it for you. We're really happy that our district is prioritizing getting our students stuck in Afghanistan home. And I said it last time and I'll say it again, last time at the last board meeting, that that has to be a priority because it's literally life or death, literally, like literally. I can't stress it enough. It's absolutely heartbreaking. So district is going to be doing or has kicked off a donation drive monetarily and for things like sheets and blankets and medical necessities like crutches and wheelchairs, like some pretty heavy stuff. So President Viescas and I are going to be partnering. Actually, I'm doing way more than half. So we are going to be partnering on a project so that we could be available to receive some donations, and maybe President Viescas could provide some details. We're going to post it on our social media pages and probably share on our email list. But that's in addition to what the district will be doing as well with directly receiving donations.
I'll wait to finish that half until after Dr. McKibben. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. McKibben.
That last Thursday, I attended the Mulberry Apartments Greer neighborhood meeting, and it was very well attended by a number of different groups like Project Optimism, the Sacramento Library, as well as teachers doing things with students inside the library, inside the complex and so forth, and continuing on what they have been doing over the last few years. And I just congratulate them for doing it, and congratulate the families were so appreciative of that happening. And I just wanted to mention that. I left that meeting a few minutes early and caught the last two races at Carnegie Middle School of their cross country. And it was great to see cross country going on again now, and watching those kids racing, and also watching the amazing number of parents that were out watching them do their thing. It was very, very satisfying. And thanks to those people that made that happen.
Thank you. And as was mentioned, I want to just express my appreciation to the staff and the team that has pulled together an opportunity to support both our existing and new neighbors that have been directly and immediately impacted by a lot of international topics and items that has created a number of challenges. And so, as was mentioned, both the district did put out some information related to both offering direct donations and donations of items to support our Afghan community. And then there's opportunities to drop off any donations during the week. And in the event that a week time drop off does not work out, Ms. Creason and I will be spending Sunday from 10:30 to 12:30 at Carmichael Park receiving donations, and would be happy to transport them to the appropriate location for use, but to make sure that they get where they're needed. So that was the end of my report. I'm trying to think. I don't think I have anything to add at this time. So we are now at item K, future agenda items. Do any board members wish to add any items to the future agenda at this time? Okay. Seeing none, we do have visitor comments. We are at item L, and we have, I'm going to double check, but at last count, we had 2 speaker comments. We have 2 in person and no written comments. I'd like to remind the public that comments are limited to 2 minutes, and under the Ralph M. Brown Act, the board is not allowed to comment on items that are not on the agenda. So we're not ignoring your comments. We just can't respond to any individual comments. The superintendent can refer items to staff who can follow up with you, and the clock on the wall counts down the time for 2-minute limit. We have Jasmine Bendicio and Monica Stone, and I apologize in advance if I've mispronounced your name. I invite you to correct me. Jasmine, feel free to join us.
Hi, it's, yeah, Jasmine Bendicio. I really quick wanted to circle back on the enrollment. Mr. Kamada had brought up how refugees could be brought in. For the refugees coming in, will they be vaccinated? Will there be a mandate vax for be forced on them as well? And if not, for the parents paying taxes for our children already attending, they should not be forced to do so either, and parents should have a choice on vax mask mandate for our own children. I would like for this to be on the next agenda, please. Thank you.
Next up, we have Monica Stone.
Getting late. Hi, thank you. Coming back to talking about independent study and not having enough staff members, teachers to fill this need and there being a wait list. Moving forward in COVID, if for some reason we can't get around this mask mandate and the COVID is never ending, and the following school year, we potentially have an extension of AB 130 and having independent study. Would you, as a board, consider taking teachers from the San Juan Unified School District that do not, by choice, want to vaccinate and asking them if they would like the option of continuing their employment if there were a mandate to come down and saying you have to be vaccinated? Would you consider taking those teachers and allowing them to continue teaching and fill a position as an independent study or a homeschool teacher? That's my question for that. And then my question about the filling a position based on a race. Why is that a thing? Like if we're not hiring someone based on the color of their skin, we're hiring them based on their qualifications. So why are we saying, well, we need to fill this quota? If you just look at all the people that apply and you hire them purely based on their education and their qualifications, and not because you need a Black person or a brown person or a Asian person. What if we said, well, we need another white person? Like everybody would be up in arms. It doesn't seem to me that should be a qualifying factor in employment if we're basing it on equality. Thank you.
We are now at item at closed session. We do not need to return to closed session, rather, and so seeing no other items or no further public comments, we are adjourned at this time. Thank you all.